They whispered in shadows, their voices sharp as knives, their hatred clothed in simple words. Set her world on fire. Leave her with nothing. I wasn't meant to hear it, but I did. And when I did, every syllable carved its mark on my skin. They thought I would crumble. They thought I was too fragile to survive. That if they stripped away my comforts, my peace, my foundation, I would wither into dust. And so, one by one, they lit the flames. It started quietly. Whispers turning into lies spread like sparks in dry grass. One rumor here, another there, until my name itself carried the stench of smoke. Friends I had trusted slipped away. Their loyalty was no match for the fire. People I once confided in became strangers overnight. My reputation, carefully built over years, went up in embers like paper in a storm. But they didn't stop there. The fire spread to what I had built with my own hands. Opportunities I had worked for collapsed suddenly. Doors once wide open slammed shut in my face. Projects abandoned me like sinking ships. Even money, resources, the roof over my head, they all bent and buckled under the weight of their blaze. I could see their satisfaction in the distance, watching the smoke rise, believing each collapse was proof of my undoing. And then came the deepest cut, betrayal. The kind that splits your chest wider than any flame. The one you never expect. The strike that doesn't come from a stranger but from someone close enough to know your heart. When they walked away, leaving me standing among ruins, I realized the fire they promised me had finally come alive. The world they spoke of, burning, broken, barren, was all around me. From the outside, it must have looked like nothing was left. My name shaken, my home unstable, my circle shattered. Everything I had leaned on before felt like ash in my hands. And yet, in that very moment, standing there as the world cracked around me, I did not move. My body was still, my breath steady even as the smoke closed in, because though they had built the fire, though they fanned it with their cruelty, they had forgotten one thing. I was not made to collapse in the heat. That fire was not my end. It was only the beginning of something they had never expected, transformation already stirring within the flames. The flames arrived in full, not metaphorical anymore, but painfully real. It was everywhere. The collapse of trust, the destruction of certainty, the smoldering of safety. Each day was another blaze, another wall turning to smoke, another foundation collapsing beneath my feet. There were nights I sat in silence, staring at the ceiling, surrounded by remnants of what once was mine. The home I built was fractured. The future I imagined lay in ashes. My name, the name they had dragged through the mud and left for dead, echoed back at me whenever I closed my eyes. They had set their fire well. Smoke filled every corner of my life. Whispers of, "She's finished." It's over for her. She'll never recover. Hung in the air like poisonous fumes. And I'll admit, there was a moment where I almost gave in, almost let their words choke me out. Standing in that inferno, the heat pressed harder and harder against me. I could feel the pressure of it daring me to fall. But here's what they didn't know. I had walked through fire before. Betrayal wasn't foreign to me. Loss wasn't a stranger in my story. The flames that circled me now were only brighter, louder, but they were not unfamiliar. So instead of running, I stood still. The flames coiled around me, licking at everything they thought made me whole. My bank account, my reputation, my plans, my safety nets, all of it crumbled into smoke and sand. But as the fire reached for me, it found nothing to consume. My core wasn't made of the paper and wood they thought they'd burned away. It was forged from steel that had been gathering in silence all along. Their blaze didn't break me. It only revealed me. The ones who gathered to watch were waiting for screams, waiting for the collapse. And when none came, when all they saw was a figure, standing in the center of their storm without flinching, confusion set in. The fire they had lit so proudly shrieked around me, but I remained silent, rooted, unshaken. Yes, the world they built for me had burned. Yes, their fire had eaten through everything they thought defined me. But nothing essential was gone, because the truth was simple. You cannot destroy what you did not build. And as the last embers settled, it became painfully clear The person walking out of that fire was not the same one who entered. When the fire died down and the smoke began to thin, I realized something none of them could have imagined. The blaze they thought would consume me had only stripped away everything unnecessary. The false friends who left, they were never mine. The fragile walls that crumbled, they were never meant to hold me. The life they burned to ash was never too strong to begin with. But in those ashes, something new was stirring. I felt stronger than I ever had. My skin may have carried the sting of betrayal, but my soul carried the weight of survival, and that weight was turning into wings. Where they thought I would crumble, I rebuilt. Where they believed I would drown in despair, I stood taller, each breath reminding me that I was still here, unbroken, undeniable. That was the secret of the fire. It had been their weapon, but it became my forge. Every flame that licked at me hammered me harder into steel. Every wall that fell cleared a path I hadn't dared to take before. They had wanted me to collapse. Instead, they had crafted my rebirth. I saw it in their eyes when I walked past them again. Those who had once plotted, those who had rejoiced in the blaze. They didn't see someone broken, someone damaged. They saw someone different. My shoulders squared higher. My gaze was steadier. There was a silence in me that unnerved them. The silence of a storm that had already raged and survived. The transformation wasn't loud. It didn't have to be. I stopped questioning why they hated me, why they envied me, why they chose fire over peace. Their reasons no longer mattered. What mattered was that through their betrayal, through the wreckage they left behind, they had awakened something I hadn't even known lived in me, a strength that didn't need their approval, a spirit that couldn't be broken by their flames. The blaze had ended, but I was still standing, not limping, not dragging the weight of ashes behind me. I was standing taller, brighter, with flames in my own eyes now, not the fire of destruction, but the fire of transformation. They couldn't take that from me. They never could. And in that realization, I felt something else, gratitude, twisted though it sounded. Because without their fire, I might never have seen what I truly was. I wasn't their victim anymore. I was my own fire, my own rebirth, my own transformation. When I finally stepped out of the blaze, I carried nothing of what they tried to strip away from me. The ashes of my past life clung faintly to my shoes, but they were light, powerless, no longer chains. My hands, once full of what I thought was necessary, now carried nothing, yet they felt stronger than ever. My reflection in their shocked eyes told me everything. I hadn't been reduced to dust. I had been remade. The same mouths that once whispered, "Leave her with nothing," now fell silent. They had expected brokenness, weakness, sorrow written across my face. Instead, they saw a calm fierceness they had never known. They saw a woman who had stood in their fire and walked out whole, not untouched but transformed, not unharmed but unshaken. There was a strange beauty in their silence, fear mixed with awe. They realized their fire was never my end. It had only been my beginning. They had written the wrong story. They had choreographed a tragedy, but I had rewritten it into triumph. In trying to burn me, they had burned away their own illusions. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to explain. My existence, my stillness, my transformation, all of it was enough to shame them. I watched as their eyes darted to one another, desperate for proof that I was ruined. But there was no ruin left to see, only strength, and an undeniable light rising from the smoke. The air was different around me now. I didn't cling to what I had lost. The fire had already answered whether those things were truly mine. What remained was pure. What remained was real. And most importantly, what remained was unshakable. So I looked at the ones who had set the fire, the ones who had fueled it with lies and betrayal. My voice didn't quake. My eyes didn't waver. I said nothing cruel, nothing bitter. I simply let the truth echo through me as clearly as flames crackling in the night. You thought fire would destroy me, but fire only revealed me. Their silence was my victory. Their disbelief was my crown. And as I turned my back on them, walking forward into a life they could no longer touch, I realized the fire had left me with exactly what I needed. Not ashes, not nothing, but a transformation no one could take away. It was never about what they burned. It was always about what I became standing inside the blaze, unshaken, unchanged in essence, and reborn. And that is why, even now, when I hear their whispers, I smile. Because the fire they meant to end me with has become the fire I carry with me, eternal.